Thank you. So just going to give you a little brief blurb about CloudOps. So CloudOps has been in business for about 12 years now. We provide a variety of consulting, professional, and managed services to customers pretty much at any stage of their journey to the cloud. Whether you're just looking at taking a small private cloud and getting out of an in-house data center into more of a hosted managed environment, or whether you're looking to make a move into public cloud across one of the hyperscale cloud providers, CloudOps has deep expertise in CloudStack, in OpenStack, in all of the container environments, including Kubernetes and Docker, as well as in helping people manage workloads across any of the hyperscale providers, AWS, Google, Azure, or even on Cloud.ca. So Cloud.ca is our Canadian regional infrastructure as a service provider. It's basically cloud services for customers that are concerned about things like Canadian data sovereignty and making sure that their data stays here in Canada. So CloudOps is able to help with that whole realm of activity. And in addition, CloudOps has also taken the Cloud.ca model and worked with telecom providers around the world like cable and wireless, helping them build, I guess, about half a dozen or so regional clouds throughout Latin America based on that same regional cloud model. We're out there if anybody wants to come ask us questions, and we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, CloudOps. So now we start our first Ignite with David Newman. David, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello. Most of our work at Civic Actions is with US government. Today I'd like to talk about quality assurance of the end user experience. Interestingly, many of the projects that we take over don't have automated testing at all, and QA is incomplete at best. Writing quality software is hard to do. Bugs, broken functionality, the unknown unknowns, and worse, cyber attacks, ransomware, viruses. Over 90% of large US federal IT projects in the past 10 years were considered unsuccessful. Governments tend to change slowly. DevOps is only just starting to impact government projects. And writing faulty software just feels rotten. It's a downward spiral. And it can really impact our lives, our jobs. But it doesn't have to be this way. Is your software ready for the enterprise? The way we build software is changing. Government sites are no longer simple static content. They're highly complex, integrated systems. Today, there are new challenges, but also new possibilities. Our infrastructure itself is in code, and that infrastructure is transforming the QA process. I find that this can be a helpful exercise to imagine the ideal future. What could a high-quality web look like someday? Hard to believe maybe, but imagine a fully secure internet. Imagine government websites that are useful and always work, and you never hear the phrase, must be a network glitch. Now, most of the DevOps stories that I hear are about very popular large sites. Imagine if every site is reliable with a positive user experience, even government websites. And imagine not just the products, but also the people working together, sharing how we succeed, not just across teams, but also across companies, as we are doing here at DevOps Days. Containers are useful for creating reliable, healthy systems. Imagine both automated QA testing systems and developers using the same set of containers as in production. This all sounds nice, but what about the time it takes to automate everything? This comic by XKCD hits home for me that it's not trivial work. Automating QA review is especially tricky because you need to mimic users' behavior. Contrary to what this comic suggests, however, we have found that the effort is worthwhile. Something that I've heard as another objection to using Docker for automation is that it isn't secure. The images aren't secure. That's a valid concern. However, I believe the concern is going away. The Docker community has addressed this with security scanning. Also, if you are making your own Docker images, I really recommend setting your from to an official image and using repository links so that your image is built after an upstream change, especially a security change. Containers are really popular now because of Docker's popularity, but they follow an impressive history of virtual machines. Stick with what works, but I would argue that you can do so much more with containers. One of our government projects, we've actually automated well over 40 hours of monotonous QA time using Docker containers. We run those tests concurrently and on every merge request, which happens about a dozen times every day. And if a bug is discovered, we write a test to cover it, and we never see that bug again. We've recently started using visual tests, which can cover more of the user experience in just one test. All of our automation is built using free and open source tools. We've been moving some of our automation from the respectable Jenkins to GitLab CI, which is a really impressive project. Check it out. Our philosophy at Civic Actions is to be radically open. DevOps is about a culture of sharing across teams so that they all succeed. Well, free and open source has always had this culture of sharing. It's you and me working together, and that is how we can achieve our goal of a quality user experience. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Up next, I'd like to introduce our next sponsor, CapitalOne, with our dynamic duo again. Let's not talk about deep work.
Hello, everyone. I'm on foreground. Arthur's on background. Hope everyone's enjoying the conference so far and the awesome swag from CapitalOne. Yay? Awesome. So you're probably wondering, what is CapitalOne doing at a tech conference, right? No, we're not here to get you to sign up for a credit card. But what's in your wallet? Seriously, we're actually here to recruit you and your talent, right? We aren't an ordinary bank. We actually think of ourselves as a technology company. And we believe the banking industry is ripe for innovation and disruption. And we're looking for talented engineers to come help us build effortless and amazing experiences for our customers. And as a tech company, we're not afraid to use the best tools and technologies to solve our business problems. So we're not afraid to use open source tools. We're not afraid to contribute tools that we built in-house to open source. We're not afraid to use the public cloud to actually manage our data center and infrastructure. So if any of this excites you and you want to work in an environment where you can actually influence change, experiment, and innovate, we would love to talk to you. Please stop by our booth outside to learn more. Thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you, CapitalOne. As I come to the foreground, I'm going to go to the background now. I'm going to introduce Amana, our next Ignite speaker, to talk about the top 5 ways to fail at DevOps. Thank you. Fozzie, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Amana, and I'm a senior consultant with Deloitte. As a consultant, I get to see how a lot of clients go about their DevOps transformations. I get to see the good, the okay, and the not so good. And that's what I want to talk about today, the not so good stuff, the anti-patterns, the things that will likely lead you to fail. So why is that? DevOps is easy to start talking about, but a little hard to get a full grasp on, especially if you're talking about implementation at scale. Also, some of these problems keep repeating client after client after client, so it's finally time to put some of them to rest. So I started putting some of these things together. I consulted some of my colleagues, and I put a list up on devoops.fail. Check it out, and please add some of your thoughts. I would love to hear some of your failure stories so we can all learn from you. Number 5, countdown. Number 5, using DevOps as a cost-cutting initiative. I get questions like, how much of my operating budget can I save? Or how many people can I slash? If you're focused on these things, you're likely going in the wrong direction. So can I get all 3, better, faster, cheaper? Of course you can, but if you're in the stock market, you know that you're not gonna get an immediate return on investment. Things take time to happen. So faster, absolutely, but I hope that you're not parachuting practices into production. You need to pilot them, validate them, and then they'll make their way up. Better, of course, but norms take time to mature. Cheaper, yes, of course, absolutely. But, again, like I said at the beginning, that will also take time. Number 4, the no transformation. The easiest way to make a transformation happen. So what's the easiest way to do it? Build a separate organization. See, I have no problem with innovation programs or technology labs. However, they better not be a permanent state. They should be there to pilot practices, try new things out. But at the end, you should really try and scale things out and spread those practices to the rest of your organization. You see, DevOps is about building bridges, people talking, people sharing, not about us building cottage industries that get nowhere and nobody else in the organization gets to see the benefits or the fruits out of. Number 3, upgrading tools but not upgrading associated practices. See, DevOps is not just about technology. If you have Git and Jenkins, it doesn't mean that you're doing DevOps. You need to upgrade the associated practices with those things. Technology, especially in the DevOps world, is built with a certain philosophy to use them. So if you're using a new CI server, well, you better be self-serving builds and deployments to your users. If you're in public cloud, why do you still have static environments again? So software upgrade programs are great, but they better, again, be associated with training, cultural practices, the right way to use them. Otherwise, the whole thing is really counterproductive. Number 2, vendor-driven transformations. So DevOps comes with a philosophy where you're supposed to be an intrinsic element, organically grown within the organization. And if that doesn't happen, then people really will miss the point out of that. And same with apps. There is no magic bullet that an app, the one hammer for every kind of problem that you have. So don't look out for that because it doesn't exist. Even though Docker exists nowadays, I have yet to see a container that gives you culture in a box. It doesn't exist. I've searched Google. So no one has all the answers, and not all the answers involve code. Some of these things related to norms, practices, training, things like that. Lastly, number 1, isolating dev, QA, and ops. Physically, literally. You put walls and borders and nobody can cross. And if you want to talk to the other person, well, you better get approval from your manager. Who's seen that here? I bet you a lot of you have. So, and look, everybody has problems with space, right? You don't have unlimited space. However, please treat your people equally. Don't throw ops in the basement or completely outsource the whole department. The thing I hate is when people say ops is not a competency. It's not a core competency, so we're going to throw it out the door. Co-locate your people where you can. You need to develop trust and norms. That's what co-location is about. And if you don't have that, please compensate for that in other means. There's a lot of technology out there. Please share your stories. It'll make everybody here better, and it will inspire change. And it all depends on you to call a spade, and to tell everybody what's wrong, to make the transformation in your organization a success. If you have any other ideas in addition to these, I would love to hear from you. Please throw them up on DevOps.fail. Find me on Twitter and LinkedIn. I'd love to have a chat outside. My contact information is up there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fawzi. Thank you so much. Up next, we have 2 of our sponsors coming up, the HPE and followed by Elastic.
Good afternoon. I'm from Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and I know typically when we think about DevOps, we think about companies like Facebook and Google who are built on the cloud from the ground up to be agile. But the reality is we all need to deliver software faster, but for the rest of us, it's a lot more challenging because we are dealing with legacy tools and teams, so the move to DevOps is really a journey. At HP, we've been doing this ourselves. We've been making the transformation to DevOps and helping our customers along their journey. So we've built some great tools that support agile, hybrid, and waterfall methodologies. So if you stop by our booth, we can show you a demo, learn from your experiences, and you can enter to win a $200 Amazon gift card. Thank you.
All right. First of all, thank you all for attending. This is our first DevOps Days Toronto, and it's been great. So raise your hand if you've heard of Elasticsearch, Logstash, or Kibana. All right, keep your hand raised if you've heard of Beats, our newest open source. All right, keep your hand raised or raise it back up if you've heard of the company behind these products, these open source products, Elastic. All right. Good to hear. So we have a little game for you all. We're going to play trivia, and then whoever shouts out the answer first will get a T-shirt. So first question. A well-known wiki website uses Elasticsearch for its full-text search capabilities. Name this website. Yes, you win. All right. Next question. Elastic offers hosted Elasticsearch, a.k.a. Elasticsearch as a service. Name this Elastic product. What? Louder? Cloud, Elastic Cloud, you said it. Formerly known as Found. And last question, how much does it cost to download and use Elasticsearch, Logstash, Kibana, and Beats? Yeah, it's free, it's open source. All right, thank you for playing. And if you have any questions for us, come visit us at our booth. Thank you.
Thank you, Elastic. Up next, we have Ernest for his next Ignites talk.
Hey guys, first of all, let's agree to hack the format a little bit and just ignore the slides completely. I want to talk to you about two things, uptime and error budgeting. I really want us to stop obsessing about uptime to the degree that we do at the moment. That seems to be the only thing business cares about. That seems to be the only thing that's going into SLAs. That seems to be the only metric by which operations teams get bonuses at the end of the year. And it's a terrible, terrible thing to do. And the reason it's a terrible thing to do is because uptime actually doesn't reflect accurately at all the quality of your platform, the quality of your engineering team, or the experience your users are getting. And instead of this, I want us to consider an alternative metric that I'm sure some of you have heard about but never actually tried implementing in the real world as a real one metric about how you're doing, and that's error budgeting. So before we talk about error budgeting, we should agree on a couple of things. The first thing we should agree upon is what do we consider as errors? Those little bugs that just spit nasty Java stack trace exceptions into your log that you just keep ignoring, those are probably errors. Right? If something flakes out in the JavaScript on a user's end, unless it's Internet Explorer, it's probably an error, and you want to count it as such. But the flip side of this, and this is a very, very important moment, is also to agree what errors are not. Right? So if your user is requesting a page that actually does not exist, and you serve him a 404, which is technically the right thing to do, you should not count those things as errors. If you're in the cloud, and your cloud zone goes down, sure, you're completely down, and your uptime is screwed. But those are not errors. Those are not problems with your engineering team. Those are things that are outside of your control. You can plan for them, but you shouldn't count them against your error budget. And the last thing, and it's a very important thing to do whenever you have a budget, is actually to agree what happens once you max that out, right? So you need to be able to take some sort of action or agree with your team or with your management that something is going to happen, just like with a real financial budget. And what I would suggest in that case is that it would be a great time, once you maxed out your error budget, which is basically just a ratio of successes to errors, once you define both of those things, is that you're either going to take a moment, take a few sprints, and address those errors, or you're going to halt feature deployment altogether until your error ratio is back up to where you want it to be. And once you have those things in place, you can really start measuring the actual quality and taking actions to improve that actual quality, which I would argue uptime does not represent. So I'm going to give you one really easy example that we had at GroupBuy of going through this exercise. You don't need a whole bunch of tools or things to start. You just need to be able to log basic events so that you actually know when things happen and what those things are. And a really easy example to do that is actually to start looking at the logs from your front-facing web servers, right? So these guys are serving HTTP protocols. Each response comes with a code, a status code. It's really easy to do. It's a number. 3 digits, right, between 200 and 599. And you need to sit with your team and decide which of those status codes are actually an error. And start calculating those things in an ugly way can just be done with grep, for instance. But things would get much easier for you if you actually have centralized log collection. And you collect all those pieces of information into something like an elk stack, or you shove them in a SQL database, or maybe you're a Splunk kind of guy. That's fine. Then you can actually start visualizing them, putting them on dashboards. You can write complex budgets in this case because you can isolate your components and give them separate budgets. And that's a much better way to track how you're doing than of having this one big number with a few nines on it that just changes every day but doesn't mean anything until you drop significantly below it. And so we started doing this at GroupBuy, and we noticed a few things. It really started affecting our mentality. We actually started looking at uptime in a completely different way. So most of you, I'm sure, as you're going into maintenances, are trying to make a maintenance late at night when it would affect less users. But to be honest, that doesn't mean that your users are getting the same experience, right? So for instance, if you have an outage during a flash sale and all your users are trying to buy something and they can't, well, that's going to affect them much more negatively than when you're going to have an outage in the middle of January when nobody has money to buy anything and they're just window shopping anyways, right? Error budgeting actually reflects those things very, very carefully because you generate a lot more errors. So I encourage you guys to take it home, try it. It's great, and at the very least, you'll have a much more accurate metric to work on.
Thank you, Ernest. Next, I'd like to invite our next sponsor, CGI.
Hi, everybody. My name's Derek Stanicki. I'm from CGI. In case you guys haven't heard of CGI, we are a global consulting company, and we work with our clients across a number of different industries to help them with their technology solutions, business processes, and all in all, help them build really, really cool stuff. We've had an awesome time hanging out with all you guys over the last day or so, and we look forward to talking with you guys in open spaces. Come and see us at our booth. We're right across the street from the door. Have a chat with us. Find out what we do. We are looking for talented people all the time, so if you're interested in going into consulting and working with a number of different people across different verticals, let us know. We'd love to talk to you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, CGI. Up next, our next Ignite speaker, Jason Harley. Jason, you're next.
Good afternoon, folks. We're good. So I'm Jason Harley, and I'm here this afternoon to talk about what I think is a bit of an emerging problem in the DevOps community and in IT operations in general. And that is outage Schadenfreude. And I'm not German. I apologize if I just butchered that to any German speakers. So Schadenfreude, for those who don't know what it is the feeling of enjoyment that comes from seeing or hearing about the troubles of other people. So how many people are saying to themselves right now, yeah, that's me, I do that. Yeah. So where's this coming from? It's coming from us, obviously. But more specifically, and the catalyst for this talk and what got me up on stage for what is probably going to be a fairly structured rant, was the Amazon S3 outage, the most recent one, right? Cool. How many people, hands, if you want to shout, that's cool too, took more than a little bit of pleasure in Amazon's failure that day? Bridges is making a face saying, not me, no. PTSD, exactly. If you've been on call, you might have been able to put yourself in what in their outage report was one person's shoes who was just trying to do their job. But we sort of have a problem, right? This is something that we are continuing to take more and more pleasure in, and it's even worse, being driven by clickbait headlines and people who, as season 5 of The Wire taught us, are just trying to make a living. But the thing is, we can't progress our craft while we're getting out the popcorn and gleefully watching each other struggle. I maintain that is not possible. What we can do is go back to the principles that brought us into this room today and start to share and collaborate and learn. Because honestly, who hasn't caused an outage? I have caused some spectacular outages. I used to work for a company that traded money on the internet. And if you are saying I've never caused an outage, I do not believe you. That, or you're new to ops, or you work in an organization where you write scripts that never actually make it out the door due to change management problems. Though your SVN commits are probably super rad. So let's talk about an interesting phenomenon. Convergence leads to compounding. I made that up because I thought it sounded really smart when I was making these slides at the last minute. But what I mean is that as more of us move to centralized services like Amazon, we are all going to start to feel pain together. And the dependencies are often a surprise. S3, as a lower member of an infrastructure as a service or platform as a service, depending on your definition offering, other things depend on it. We build pyramids based on what we think are strong foundations. And we are moving to this world where seemingly everything is a distributed system. Your single EC2 instance running on Amazon is possibly a distributed system depending on what you are relying on. And this complexity is astounding. It is so astounding that we all forget it, I would argue. Even more importantly, as we start to use technology more and more, everyone has these smartphones in their hands that are doing fascinating things if we take a step back, and I don't mean to sound like Louis C.K. The general public does not understand the scope of this complexity. They depend on it, they expect it, and we talk about technical dependence like it's this passing craze. The problem is that people don't actually know how these things work, and they can't appreciate when it goes down what actually happens. So I would call upon us as a group of people to start to educate these people, your peers, your friends, each other, yourself. S3, I have not worked at Amazon. I have deployed Swift, which is sort of based on S3. That's a complicated beast. If they were moving that many terabytes per second, I imagine it is absolutely mind-boggling. The next and topic near and dear to my heart is this idea of thinking defensively. There's a book called Release It, which if you haven't read, I would highly recommend it. And this is where, how many people have heard the term bulkhead or circuit breaker? I feel that they're used to the point that they mean nothing now. But if we are making calls to other services, we need to think about those boundaries. If we are writing code and building services and designing architectures, that is on us. Explaining to people when things go bad that it's a very difficult thing to do is also on us. Most importantly, and in the end, I think that the world would be a better place if there was more empathy in it. DevOps is founded on a pillar of empathy, and I think that all of us should be doing our best to empathize with our peers and with our teams when things go sideways. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I'm Jason Harley.
Thank you, Jason. We have our next sponsors, Deloitte. Deloitte, you're on stage.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hayal Arabi, and I'm a business technology analyst at Deloitte. I joined the Deloitte DevOps practice around 4 months ago, and have since realized how Deloitte really is very passionate about DevOps. A lot of our clients are facing similar struggles, such as trying to keep up with the speed of business and improve quality. Deloitte views DevOps as a game changer in modernizing IT practices. But really, what makes Deloitte stand out is that it has extensive experience from its global network and its partnerships with vendors such as AWS, IBM, and HP, just to name a few. As you know, DevOps is currently a hot topic, and we're here to learn from you, as well as share our own experiences within this space. So please drop by our booth, and let's talk DevOps. Thank you.
Thank you, Haya. All right. Next, we have one of our alumni core organizers from the previous years of DevOps Days, Dave Cleff from PagerDuty. Dave, welcome back.
Thank you.
Check.
Don't hate the pager.
Check.
All right, here we go. This is what happens when you give a crazy person a microphone for 5 minutes. This talk is going to involve audience participation, so I'd like everybody to stand up right now, please. Can everyone stand up? All right, and we're going to do some responsive reading here. Responsive reading because this works. I learned this in church, all right? So everyone follow along with me, and this is the Bible according to Jez Humble, the Continuous Delivery Bible. All right, here we go. Start at for developers. Here we go. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. For developers to take responsibility for the systems they create, they need support from operations to understand how to build reliable software that can be continuously deployed to an unreliable platform that scales horizontally. All right, you can have a seat. Thank you. Thank you for indulging me. What does that mean? What does that really mean? Well, it's actually that the role of operations is vastly changing, right? And operations is actually pivoting now to go build a platform for the rest of developers. So this is the closest you're going to get to support group, okay? Full stack developer support group, 12-step program. Anybody know what step 9 is? What's step 9? We make amends. Who are we making amends with as operations? With developers, because they're our customer now. Guess what? You're going to have to do it because you're going to have to talk to them. Now, I'm a recovering developer myself, actually. 10 years, I've now been in product management, and I thought that this would be a great opportunity to actually talk about, hey, some product management 101 principles. Because if you're in operations, you're pivoting, you're building a platform for developers who are now your customers, maybe you should know how to be a product manager too, huh? What do you think? All right, first step, get out of the building. Get out of the building. Now, I get it. Developers are actually in the building that you work in, so you should probably go. This is more of a meta point. Go talk to them. The second is that you actually want to empathize with them. You need to understand their day job. It's not just that you can listen to the requests that they have and go build that thing. You want to understand what's their pain. Walk in their shoes, because the reality is, I love this quote from Cindy Sridharan. If developers are practicing DevOps, it's because they are being furnished with an extremely accessible set of tools. They've been built from the ground up to appeal specifically to their sensibilities and skills, or lack thereof. Honestly, understand from an empathy perspective that developers are being asked to do more and more in digital operations shops, right? Digitally transformed shops. They're being asked more and more to learn more technologies across an entire stack. We had a great talk yesterday by Pete Chestnut about the full spectrum engineer, right? They're being asked to now go on call for these things as well, bring business value, all of these things. Honestly, it's overwhelming. So empathize with your developers. And then the next very important point is make sure that you're measuring outcomes and not output. I don't care how many times you deploy per day. I want to know, how responsive are you to your customers? What is that getting you? What is that benefiting you? All right? And honestly, this great quote from Mick Pollard, I thought it was a fantastic way to think about the operations role and how it's changed now around being a developer experience engineer. It's just a complete mind shift of change about who is my customer, who am I trying to make, who am I trying to enable, who am I trying to make more effective. And honestly, you're not alone in this, operations. You're not alone in this. I consider myself, as a product manager, part of enabling the developers who are effectively creating the product within your company. I'm supporting them, right? And I subscribe to Marty Kagan, who's a great product leader down in Silicon Valley. He talks about usability, feasibility, and value, and basically ensuring that you're kind of at the epicenter of that. And fundamentally, for me as a product manager, what it comes down to is alignment. Driving alignment is crucially hard across all of these different silos, right? Really, really hard in order to actually drive alignment effectively. Okay, so I thought I was actually the last talk of the day before open spaces, but because I'm an idiot. But actually, Chris is going to come out next. So this is actually a challenge to Chris, to challenge you later of what are you going to do differently on Monday? What are you going to do differently from this conference, from the things that you've learned? And I want you to come up with, maybe in an open space, come up with an action plan as to these are the questions I'm going to ask. These are the things that I'm going to do differently and I'm going to measure, all right? Now, we work with, at PagerDuty, I get to work with a ton of fantastic customers who have built platforms for their developers to go be effective. This is a core part of enabling DevOps to succeed within an organization. And so I get to do this on a regular basis and talk with customers. It's wonderful. If you want to come work with us in Toronto, we have a thriving Toronto office. I think I have a couple of seconds now for like Q&A. So does anyone...
Thank you, Dave.
All right.
Thank you, Dave.